Okay, we are back. We're back with James and the Giant Peach by Roald Dahl, and we are on chapter 22. We're going to go 22, 23, and 24 today. So let's see how that goes. We've got some excitement going on. James is working on a plan to rescue them from the grips of these terrible sharks that are attacking the peach. And of course, their worry is that they're going to eat the peach up, the sharks, because that's what they do. And then once that peach gets to nothing, they're going to be shark bait, and that's bad. That's bad. So things have gone from, kind of bad to like really, really bad. So let's see what happens. In a few minutes, everything was ready. It was very quiet now on top of the peach. There was nobody in sight, nobody except the earthworm. One half of the earthworm looked like a great, thick, juicy pink sausage lay innocently in the sun for all the seagulls to see. The other half of him was dangling down in the tunnel. James was crouched close beside the earthworm in the tunnel entrance, and below the surface, waiting for this first seagull. He had a loop of string in his hands. The old green grasshopper and the ladybug were further down in the tunnel, holding on to the earthworm's tail, ready to pull him in quickly out of danger as soon as James gave the word. And far below, in the great hollow of the stone peach, the glowworm was lighting up the room so that the two spinners, the silkworm and Miss Spider, could see what they were doing. The centipede was down there too, exhorting them both frantically to greater efforts. And now and again, James could hear his voice coming up faintly from the depths, shouting, "Spin, silkworm, spin, you great, fat, lazy brute! Spin faster, or we will throw you to the sharks." "Here comes the first seagull," whispered James. "Keep still now, earthworm, keep still. The rest of you get ready to pull." "Please don't let it spike me," begged the earthworm. I won't. Shh. Out of the corner of one eye, James watched the seagull as it came swooping down towards the earthworm. And then suddenly, it was so close that he could see its small black eyes and curved beak, and the beak was open, ready to grab a nice piece of flesh out of the earthworm's back. "Pull!" shouted James. The old green grasshopper and the ladybug gave their earthworm's tail an enormous tug, and like magic, the earthworm disappeared into the tunnel. And at the same time, up went James's hand, and the seagull flew straight into the loop that he was holding out. The loop, which had been cleverly made, tightened just the right amount, but not too much, around its neck, and the seagull was captured. "Hooray!" shouted the green grasshopper, peering down on the tunnel. "Well done, James." Up flew the seagull, with James paying out the silk string as he went. He gave it about 50 yards, and then he tied the string to the stem of the peach. "Next one," he shouted, jumping back into the tunnel. Oh, here's a cool picture. I don't know if I've been showing you the pictures. I don't think I have. It's pretty cool. Crazy idea, huh? But hey, seems to be working. Up you get again, earthworm. Bring us some more silk, centipede." "Oh, I don't like this at all," wailed the earthworm. "It only just missed me. I even felt the wind on my back as it came swishing past." "Shh," whispered James. "Keep still. Here comes another one." And so they did it again and again and again and again. And the seagulls kept coming, and James caught them one after the other and tethered them to the peach stem. 100 seagulls, he shouted, wiping the sweat from his face. "Keep going," they cried. "Keep going, James." 200 seagulls, 300 seagulls, 400 seagulls. The sharks, as those sensing that they were in danger of losing their prey, were hurling themselves at the peach more furiously than ever, and the peach was sinking lower and lower into the water. 500 seagulls, James shouted. Silkworm says she's running out of silk," yelled the centipede from below. "She says she can't keep up it much longer, nor can Miss Spider." "Tell them they've got to," James answered. "They can't stop now." "We're lifting," somebody shouted. "No, we're not. I felt it." "Put on another seagull, quick." "Quiet, everybody, quiet. Here comes another one." This was the 501st seagull, and the moment James caught it and tethered it to the stem with the others, the whole enormous peach suddenly started raising slowly up out of the water. Look out! Here we go! Hold on, boys! But then it stopped, and there it hung. It hovered and swayed, but it went no higher. The bottom of it was just touching the water, as it was a delicately balanced scale that needed only the tiniest push to tip it one way or the other. "One more will do it," shouted the old green grasshopper, looking down in the tunnel. "We're almost there." And now came the big moment. Quickly, the 502nd seagull was caught and harnessed to the peach stem. And then suddenly, but slowly, majestically, like some fabulous golden balloon, with all the seagulls straining at the strings above, the giant peach rose up, dripping out of the water, and began climbing towards the heavens. That was chapter 22. Here's 23. In a flash, everybody was up on top. "Oh, isn't it beautiful?" they cried. "What a marvelous feeling. Goodbye, sharks." "Oh boy, this is the way to travel." Miss Spider, who was literally squealing with excitement, grabbed the centipede by the waist, and the two of them started dancing around and around the peach stem together. The earthworm stood up on his tail and did a sort of wiggle of joy all by himself. The old green grasshopper kept hopping higher and higher into the air. The ladybug rushed over and shook James warmly by the hand. The glowworm, who at the best times was very shy and silent creature, started glowing with pleasure near the tunnel entrance. Even the silkworm, looking white and thin and completely exhausted, came creeping out of the tunnel to watch the most miraculous ascent. Up and up they went, and soon they were as high as the top of the church steeple above the ocean. "I'm a bit worried about the peach," James said to the others as soon as all the dancing and shouting had stopped. "I wonder how much damage the sharks have done to it underneath. It's quite impossible to tell from up here." Before we turn the page, I want to show you this picture. You see the sharks below here. All of the seagulls, all 502 seagulls pulling the peach up out of the water. It's a cool picture. Why don't I go over to the side and make an inspection?" Miss Spider said. "I'll be in no trouble at all, I assure you." And without waiting for an answer, she quickly produced a length of silk thread and attached it to the end of the peach stem. "I'll be back in a jiffy," she said, and then she walked calmly over to the edge of the peach and jumped off, paying out thread from behind her as she fell. The others crowded anxiously around the place where she had gone over. "Wouldn't it be dreadful if the thread broke?" the ladybug said. There was a rather long silence. "Are you all right, Miss Spider?" shouted old green grasshopper. "Yes, thank you," her voice answered from below. "I'm coming up now." And up she came, climbing foot after foot, foot over foot, up the silk thread, at the same time tucking the thread back cleverly into her body as she climbed past it. "Is it awful?" they asked her. "Is it eaten away? Are there great holes in it everywhere?" Miss Spider clambered back onto the deck with a pleased but rather puzzled look on her face. "You won't believe this," she said, "but actually there's hardly any damage down there at all. The peach is almost untouched. There are just a few pieces out of it here and there, but nothing more." "You must be mistaken," James told her. "Of course she's mistaken," the centipede said. "I promise you, I'm not," Miss Spider answered. "But there were hundreds of sharks around us. They churned the water into froth. We saw their mouths open and shutting." "I don't care what you saw," Miss Spider answered. "They certainly didn't do much damage to the peach." "Then why did we start sinking?" the centipede asked. "Perhaps we didn't start sinking," the old green grasshopper suggested. "Perhaps we were all so frightened that we simply imagined it." This, in point of fact, was closer to the truth than any of them knew. A shark, as you see, has an extremely sharp nose, and its mouth is very awkwardly underneath its face and a long way back. This makes it more or less impossible for it to get its teeth into a vast, smooth, curving surface such as the side of a peach. Even if the creature turns its back, it still can't do it because the nose is always getting in the way. If you have ever seen a young dog trying to get its teeth around an enormous ball, then you would be able to imagine roughly how it was with the sharks and the peach. It must have been some kind of magic, said the ladybug. The holes must have healed themselves up. Oh, look, there's a ship below us, shouted James. Everybody rushed to the side and peered over it. None of them had ever seen a ship before. It looks like a big one. It's got 3 funnels. You can even see the people on the decks. Let's wave at them. Do you think they can see us? The ship was... Do you think they could see us? Neither James nor any of the others knew it, but the ship was now passing underneath them was the Queen Mary, sailing out of the English Channel on her way to America. And on the bridge of the Queen Mary, the astonished captain was standing with a group of his officers, all of them gaping at the great round ball hovering overhead. I don't like it, the captain said. Nor do I, said the first officer. Do you think it's following us? Said the second officers. I tell you, I don't like it, murmured the captain. It could be dangerous, the first officer said. That's it, cried the captain. It's a secret weapon. Holy cats, send a message to the Queen at once. The country must be warned. Give me my telescope. The first officer handed the telescope to the captain, and the captain put it to his eye. There's birds everywhere, he cried. The whole sky is teeming with them. What in the world are they doing? And wait a second. There are people on it. I see them moving. There's do I have this darn thing focused right? It looks like a little boy in short trousers. Yes, I can distinctly see a little boy in short trousers standing up there. And there's a sort of giant ladybug. Now, wait a minute, Captain, the first officer said. And a colossal green grasshopper. Captain, the first officer said sharply. Captain, please. And a mammoth spider. Oh, dear, he's been at the whiskey again, whispered the second officer. And a simply enormous centipede, screamed the captain. Call the ship's doctor, the first officer said. Our captain isn't well. A moment later, the great round ball disappeared into a cloud, and the people on the ship never saw it again. Now, the Queen Mary, I believe, and I'm not sure about this anymore. I'm going to check on this, and if I find it, I'm going to post it on Google Classroom. The Queen Mary, I believe, is actually docked off of California. I think in San Diego. I'm not sure about that, so I might be wrong. I want to take a look at that, and maybe there's some really neat things. Maybe there's even like a virtual field trip we could do on the Queen Mary. That would be pretty cool to see that. But it is a real ship, so. Okay, chapter 24, last chapter for today. Here we go, pay attention. But upon the peach itself, everybody was still happy and excited. I wonder where we'll finish up this time, the earthworm said. Who cares, they answered. Seagulls always go back to land sooner or later. Up and up they went, high above the highest clouds, the peach swaying gently from side to side as it floated along. Wouldn't it be wonderful if... Wouldn't it be the perfect time for a little music? The ladybug asked. How about an old grasshopper? With pleasure, dear lady, the old grasshopper answered, bowing from the waist. Oh, hurrah! He's going to play for us, they cried, and immediately the whole company sat themselves down in a circle around the old green musician, and the concert began. From the moment the first note was struck, the audience became completely spellbound. And as for James, never had he heard such beautiful music as this. In the garden at home on summer evenings, he had listened many times to the sound of grasshoppers chirping in the grass, and he had always liked the noise that they made. But this was a different kind of music altogether. This was real music, chords, harmonies, tunes, and the rest of it. And what a wonderful instrument the old green grasshopper was playing on. It was like a violin. It was almost exactly as though he was playing upon a violin. The bow of the violin, the part that moved, was his back leg, and the strings of the violin were the part that made the sound was the edge of his wing. He was using only the top of his back legs, the thigh, and he was stroking this up and down against the edge of his wing with incredible skill, sometimes slowly, sometimes fast, but always with the same easy flowing action. It was precisely the way a clever violinist would have used a bow, and the music came pouring out and filled the whole blue sky around them with magical melodies. When the first part was finished, everyone clapped madly, and Miss Spider stood up and shouted, "Bravo! Encore! Give us some more!" "Did you like that, James?" the old green grasshopper asked, smiling at the small boy. "Oh, I loved it," James answered. "It was so beautiful. It was as though you had a real violin in your hands." "A real violin?" the old green grasshopper cried. "Good heavens, I like that. My dear boy, I am a real violin. It's part of my own body." "But do all grasshoppers play their music on violins the same way you do?" James asked him. "No," he answered, "not at all. If you want to know, I happen to be a short-horned grasshopper. I have 2 short feelers that come out of my head. Can you see them? They are here. They are quite short, aren't they? And that's why they call me a shorthorn. And we aren't horns. We are the only ones, and we shorthorns are the only ones that play our music in the violin style, using a bow. My longhorn relatives, the ones that have very long, curvy feelers that come out on top of their head, make their music simply by rubbing the edges of their top 2 wings together. They are not violinists. They are wing rubbers. And rather inferior noise the wing rubbers produce, too, if I must say so. It sounds more like a banjo than a fiddle. "How fascinating this all is," cried James. "And to think that up until now I have never wondered how a grasshopper made his sounds." "My dear young fellow," the old green grasshopper said gently, "there is a whole lot of things in this world of ours that you haven't started wondering about yet. Where, for example, do you think we keep our ears?" "Your ears? Why, in your head, of course." Everyone burst out laughing. Okay, stop. So, we know our ears are in our head, right? And, if you have a dog, its ears are in its head. But where do you think, make a prediction right now, where do you think a grasshopper's ears are? Got it? Well, let's find out and see if you're right. "You mean you don't even know that?" cried the centipede. "Try again," the old green grasshopper said, smiling at James. "You can't possibly keep them anywhere else." "Oh, can't I? Well, I give up. Where do you keep them?" "Right here," the old green grasshopper said, "right on each side of my tummy." "It's not true." "Of course it's true. What's so peculiar about that? You ought to see my cousins, the crickets, the katydids. They keep theirs. Where do they keep them? In their legs. One in each front leg and below the knee. Just below the knee." "You mean you didn't know that either?" the centipede said scornfully. "You're joking, James." James said. "Nobody could possibly have their ears in their legs." "Why not?" "Because it's ridiculous, that's why." "You know what I think is ridiculous?" the centipede said, grinning away as usual. "I don't mean to be rude, but I think it's rather ridiculous to have ears on the side of one's head. It certainly looks ridiculous. You ought to take a peek in the mirror one day and see for yourself." "Pest!" cried the earthworm. "Why must we always be so rude and rambunctious to everyone? You ought to apologize to James at once." Well, there you go. You learned something new about crickets and grasshoppers, that they do not have ears on their head the way we do. Kind of makes you wonder what else we just don't know. So anyway, that is it for today. Tomorrow we will hit chapters 25, 26, and 27. Hope you're enjoying it, and I hope all is well. Take care, stay healthy, see you later.